have mercy on us and grant us rain, Lord, because we need rain all the way from the Blue Ridge Mountains to the Okefenokee.
Praying for rain at Georgia's state capitol might be Atlanta's last hope for relief from a 3-year drought that has drained the water supplies of one of the country's major metropolitan areas.
See, we need to pray and believe, and we shall receive. Pray and doubt, and we'll probably do without.
While local officials fight the federal government over water allocations and environmentalists fight to save endangered mussels, Atlanta's water problems keep getting worse.
We blame God for not giving us enough rain, the fat three-ridge mussel for taking all the water out of Lanier.
Atlanta's main water reservoir at Lake Lanier has dropped to historic low levels and is often less than half full. But even when the normal rainfalls return, Atlanta's chronic water problems aren't likely to go away.
The Atlanta metropolitan area is the largest population in the United States on such a small watershed.
As dramatic the decline here in Lake Lanier's reservoir, this isn't nearly as devastating as something like the Aral Sea in Asia or Africa's Lake Chad. But for the people of Atlanta who depend on this for their primary source of water, they came within 90 days of losing it the previous summer.
In the last decade, we're beginning to realize that this is a finite resource and that we've got to manage it very carefully and not waste it. But I do think there is a sentiment that this is a 50 or 100-year drought, and if we can just get through the next year or so, we'll be fine and can go back to business as usual.
Sally Bethay is one of the more outspoken protectors of Atlanta's severely challenged watershed. Her Upper Chattahoochee Riverkeepers organization patrols and protects Atlanta's primary water resources.
Well, the main source of water for Metro Atlanta is the Chattahoochee River. More than 3.2 million Georgians rely on this river for all of their water needs. And this is a very small river. Atlanta was located for rail transportation, not for water. And so we're very challenged. We have historically not treated this river very well, not just from a quality standpoint, but water quantity as well. We waste a lot of water here in Metro Atlanta. We have this small watershed, and yet at the same time, we're hardening it, covering it at 55 acres a day of parking lots, rooftops, and pavement. And so what happens when it rains is the water rushes off fast downstream. It's not allowed to be absorbed into the soil so that there would be moisture for dry periods that could sustain our creeks and the rivers.
In addition to its relatively small watershed, Atlanta has been adding an average of 100,000 new residents a year. Its population has nearly doubled since it hosted the Olympics. During the same period, they have done very little to expand their water resources.
Well, the city of Atlanta gets its water from this water intake structure that's right behind me. Right now, this summer, we're probably withdrawing 100 to 105 million gallons per day to serve the city of Atlanta and some outlying areas.
Atlanta's downstream neighbors in Alabama and Florida also rely on Lake Lanier and the Chattahoochee River for their water. They are battling upstream Georgia in Congress and the courts to get their share of the water, especially during these drought years when there isn't enough for everybody.
Short term, part of it is because all of our drinking water for Atlanta comes out of Lake Lanier. We have no groundwater resources here for a city of our size. Part of it is the supply side of what is the best way to release that water to maintain it, but a lot part is the demand side. What do you do in terms of our behavior of repairing our system? What do you do in terms of our customers' behavior of how do you use water?
Well, it's been very difficult, particularly for businesses like, the golf courses around Atlanta and the botanical gardens and places like that, plus for all the nurseries and us homeowners too, trying to have pretty lawns and everything. It's been very difficult.
The drought has been great for local well diggers. They've become a fixture in the wealthier neighborhoods where they are willing to pay as much as $30,000 for a new well to save their precious landscaping from the city's ban on outdoor sprinklers. Under the new water restrictions, washing cars in Atlanta is also illegal unless it's done in a car wash that recycles its water.
We have a violations hotline set up for neighbors to rat out neighbors. And people will call and they'll tell me, she's at it again, she's watering, she's out there in her driveway in her little black bikini and she's washing her Jaguar.
I think that Americans are now realizing that resources like oil and water that have been so precious and critical to us for so long are things we can no longer take for granted at being pretty inexpensive. And that as the oil and gasoline costs go up, water costs are certainly going up in metro Atlanta, I think there is an awareness that life may not be the same into the next couple of decades as it has been.
Many Americans living in the rural areas like this one here in Tennessee have always counted on their local springs and wells to supply them with all the water they've ever needed. That was the case too here in Orme, Tennessee, until last summer's drought dried up the local spring. And for the first time in as many years as anyone can remember, the taps went dry.
See, we ain't had much rain. Water table's getting low, and all these springs that used to run big all summer, they don't do it no more. They drain out, you know. Get real low. So naturally, when you're out of water, you're in bad shape.
I guess we kind of take advantage of it. And then when you get without, that's when it really hits you and hits you hard.
Orme, Tennessee's only fire truck was immediately pressed into emergency service as a water tanker and daily bucket brigade. For the town's 500 residents, it was their only source of fresh water each day.
How often would you make this run last summer? We were working about anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day.
8 to 12 hours a day, just hauling water back and forth.
3 days a week. Sometimes I'd haul on weekends, most of the time we'd make it.
For 6 months, Fire Chief Preston Payne and his volunteer firefighters took turns driving across the state line to Alabama every day to fill up from a fire hydrant until Orme could get connected to a neighboring city's water line.
We would take and load, hook a hose up right here, load the truck, then we would turn around and haul it up to the water tank on top of the mountain and unload it.
How many trips a day would you have to make?
We'd make 10, 12 a day.
10 or 12 trips a day just to get enough water up in that tank?
Well, there were 2 of us hauling. We'd make 10 or 12 apiece.
Orme's volunteer fire department and makeshift water utility quickly wore out their only fire truck. They had to borrow another one from the county to keep making the daily water runs up the mountain to replenish the town's water tank, like their mountain spring used to do, until it unexpectedly left them high and dry.
It started getting low 2 or 3 years before. And there was getting shortage, but last year it was a lot drier year, and it just went plumb out.
Kind of a wake-up call to people about having to figure out their water situation?
I'm sure it is.
It was rough, real rough.
How'd you change the way you live?
Oh, we learned not to take advantage of the little things in life. And don't waste water.
I think now that they've hooked up to the main line and they're accountable for how many gallons that they actually use, then they're starting to wake up and see. Because a lot of people here, they don't understand that they use 4,000 to 6,000 gallons of water a month, and that is a lot of water. I created a little well under my air conditioning unit, and I caught the condensation that was coming off. I got about 25, 35 gallons, 45 gallons a day of water, and used it to flush toilets.
We think the water's going to be there when we turn the faucet on, and then one day it's not. I think we need to be learning, how to conserve, how to manage, not use things just carelessly and wasteful.
It's been utilized for so long that they think that it's a right. And it's really not a right, more it is a privilege. It is a resource that we need to utilize. You can't live without it.
Thank you for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.